Welcome to What the Wrestling, a show where I take a look at the major wrestling companies in America and the moments that just made me very confused. Folks, just a couple weeks ago was Halloween. And so I guess we can start this episode with NXT's revival of the WCW pay-per-view Halloween Havoc. In this special episode of NXT, every match on the card had some kind of spooky gimmick. Usually, they spun the roulette wheel to have a totally random, you guys, stipulation. It was a mostly okay event. Certainly kind of fun if you can just forgive Halloween spooky fun times. But there was one particular match, and I say match in the loosest of terms, where redneck allegory Cameron Grimes was forced to visit a seemingly haunted mobile home, supposedly owned by Dexter Lumis. I've talked about Dexter Lumis before being otherworldly creepy. This time, it didn't seem like he had any unusual powers, just being unsettling. However, the house is haunted? For real? They certainly did play it off as having a lot of creepy things going on with a lot of disturbing people inside that really shouldn't be in there. And what you would think would be a wrestling match was really more of a WWE's efforts attempt to make a amateur horror movie, as it was just about 5, maybe 10 minutes of Cameron Grimes just being psychologically tortured. October had the 30th anniversary of Chris Jericho in the world of professional wrestling, and they celebrated on AEW. This wasn't necessarily a bad idea. Chris Jericho had a very long history. Why not celebrate him? And there really wasn't anything wrong with the event itself. But going to and coming back from commercial breaks, they had various celebrities, both in the world of wrestling and the music scene, because of Jericho's band, basically share their fondest memories and stories about Chris Jericho and all this sort of thing. But what really got me was the celebrity endorsements that didn't make sense. People who had absolutely no connection at first glance to Chris Jericho. Like, there was I think there was a basketball player. There was a stand-up comedian. And it's possible that Jericho actually did know these people and they were friends, but a few of them just made me pretty confused. But speaking of Chris Jericho, there was another thing on AEW that finally reached its head, but not before an amazing and amazingly stupid segment. MJF had been trying to join Chris Jericho's inner circle pretty much all through the month of October. And eventually, to try to win Jericho's favor, MJF invited Chris Jericho to a big steak dinner at a restaurant. While at this restaurant, the two were basically competing on who could eat the bloodiest steak, as they kept ordering rarer and rarer meat, eventually just getting plates of completely raw meat and finding it disgusting and not eating it. The real capstone of this Le Dîner Debonair, as they called it, was when they suddenly broke into song in a big musical number. Over on Impact, we got to see Ethan Carter III continue his holding hostage of the TNA Championship from its current holder, Moose, and has made it clear what's really going on, because it seems like Moose was not just seeing things. EC3 actually has magic powers. Strange special effects powers. As eventually, EC3 and a couple of faceless, brainwashed goons he apparently had, captures one of the Impact backstage interviewers to tell his side of the story of things. During this forced interview, EC3 has an outburst which shakes the camera and everything around him in a clear special effects effect, and what tells us that he actually has powers, it's not just creative editing, is the interviewer reacts. He looks around and reacts to everything shaking as if it all really happened. So, it did, apparently. But also at the end of October, Impact also held, at long last, the wedding between John E. Bravo and Rosemary, the demon assassin. They had revived Father James Mitchell, the sinister minister, follower of the Church of Satan, to officiate this wedding. After all, Rosemary is a demon. Very few people are qualified to officiate a demonic wedding. After actually skipping out on every other wedding trope in wrestling history, the wedding actually goes off without a hitch. However, just as Father James Mitchell says you may kiss the bride, the lights go out and we hear a gunshot. When the camera turns back on, John E. Bravo lies shot in the middle of the ring, surrounded by potential suspects, because we know where this is going. A Who Shot Bravo murder mystery, which will no doubt be stretched into November. Near the beginning of October, we had the WWE Draft, where superstars from Raw or SmackDown could be traded and forced to go to the other brand. I remember when this used to mean something, but it really doesn't now. They'll mention it for a month or two, and then all of a sudden, Raw superstars and SmackDown superstars will just randomly show up on the other show with no rhyme or reason, and no one will think anything of it. That's how this works every time. But it did lead to a little bit of antics, like the tag team, The New Day, being divided with Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods being tossed over to Raw, and Big E being forced to stay on SmackDown, and also splitting up the team of Heavy Machinery, with Tucker and Mr. Money in the Bank Otis being forced to be on separate brands. The very next Raw afterwards, Tucker wound up with a mysterious tag team partner, the luchador El Grande Gordo, which, if I know my Spanish right, translates to the Big Belly. This was very clearly Otis in disguise, but hush, it's El Grande Gordo. Well, after a pay-per-view event and a betrayal by Tucker, Otis lost his Money in the Bank title at long last to The Miz, like The Miz always wanted. But even that is nothing compared to the following pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell, where almost every match was held inside their demonic steel structure, their giant cage. A cage that, this time, had a bold new paint job. Instead of the standard metallic gray that we're used to, they decided to paint the entire Hell in a Cell a vibrant and bright red, which fits the whole hell aspect certainly, but I personally found it very difficult to make out what was going on inside the cell from shots displaying the outside of the cell. Perhaps it wasn't the best color choice, as I really did struggle to see what was going on, but fortunately was not at a live event or even the Thunderdome, and could get cameramen to do their job for me and make shots from inside the cell. But enough of my angry rant about not being able to see you whippersnappers. I think it's time to wrap it up, because that's about all that happened this month that really confused me. I hope to see you next month, when undoubtedly I will have things to say about November. And when that time comes, I will see you in the ring.